not only is it about, 2 seconds before Shavuot begins, and it's Shabbat, and that's wonderful. This is a very special Shabbat also because this is Mental Health Shabbat. Too often, mental health is not thought of as health. We don't talk about mental health issues. We do not talk about people's mental health journeys. We don't talk about our own mental health journeys, which is weird because the majority of people will have some struggle with mental health at some point in their lives. The statistics show that. Mental health issues and struggles are so common, yet it's not something that we talk about. And I think, like with many aspects of things we don't want to talk about, it's because we don't want to think that it's real. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to envision other people having these kinds of struggles, and that makes it so isolating. And it makes the problem of dealing with mental health even greater because you feel like you're alone, like you're the only one with these issues. And it's simply not true. Mental health struggles existed long before COVID, but COVID has certainly put a sharper focus on mental health struggles. And so it is my honor to ask and to invite to the Bima one of our esteemed members of our congregation, Michael Wiesenthal, to share with you a few words about his own mental health journey. And by doing so, bring a little bit of education, a little bit of enlightenment, a little bit of inspiration to you all. So without further ado, Mr. Michael Wiesenthal.
I told her about 9 months ago after she made a sermon to High Holidays about mental health that I would do this. And it's been 9 months, and I told you I was going to do this. So anyway, the last time I was this excited to address the congregation was right here in the other sanctuary, almost exactly 50 years ago, but it was my bar mitzvah. That was about 3 rabbis ago. So anyway, God bless Rabbi Mela, may rest in peace. It was a typical weekend in November of 2019. I started out by attending services here at Beth Yeshurun, and afterwards dinner with a couple of girlfriends from the synagogue. We had had a great dinner, lots of laughs, and even closing down the restaurant. Saturday morning, I got up as usual, went to my store. I remembered it was a slow day that day in the store, and I was feeling somewhat isolated. After closing the store, I went to see a movie. I went to see a movie alone, and that's the key word. I went alone instead of going with a friend. The movie ended early in the evening, and I went home and immediately went to bed and fell asleep. As I did every Sunday, I woke up early and went to Memorial Park to do my 6-mile walk. Walking while listening to music and being outdoors helps me manage my anxiety and depression. Mile 1 was always the hardest, but by mile 3, I could feel the endorphins kick in, and I would start to feel better. It was after completing mile 6 that my anxiety would go way down. It was like pressing my restart button. This had become a weekly ritual. On Sunday night, I broke my normal routine of attending my regular men's meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous at Holy Name Retreat. Again, I sought refuge in my isolation by going to bed early, even avoiding time with my girlfriend, Carol. It was a normal night of sleep. There was no tossing, no turning, or periods of anxiety or depression keeping me awake. The next morning, I woke up in bed to an empty house. Carol had already left early to go to work that day. My thought was that I did not want to die, but I didn't want to keep going on living like that. The mental pain had become too much, and I could no longer remember feeling good. I felt hopeless. I had been having suicidal thoughts, even going as far as to explore ways to follow through. This had become a normal thought pattern that I had always been able to move past. On this particular day, Monday, something changed. Something was different about that day. Without hesitation, I went to my bathroom. I took a bottle of prescription Klonopin from my medicine drawer that I had accumulated due to multiple prescriptions written by multiple doctors. I then went downstairs, chased the pills with a big gulp of Vicks cough medicine. I went back upstairs, laid on my back in my bed, and waited to die. God was looking out for me that day, as Carol called me by phone. She detected something wrong in my voice and called 911. The last thing I remember was a banging at the door, and then I woke up 2 days later in Houston Methodist Hospital. From the time I was a teenager, I suffered from social anxiety. My father, Harold, kept a very high profile, and that set the bar even higher for me to try to follow in his footsteps. I started working at the store by the time I was 13. The family business was the center of all of our conversations. Therefore, we never took time to talk about our feelings. I remember telling my father I had a panic attack and ran out of a friend's wedding. He suggested that I lie by the pool and get some sun, which, by the way, I still find relaxing, but it wasn't just that easy. Most people did not know my father, Harold, the man that dressed 70, talked 80, and shot 90 when his putter was hot, also suffered badly from depression. You see, this disease can be genetic, and in my case, both my mother and father suffered from it. My father did a great job hiding his disease until it was so bad all he could do was sit in a chair at the store, then having a hard time even greeting our customers. To his credit, prior to his passing, he did make his mental illness public. Many people who also suffered came forward as they realized that they were not alone. At the time I started college, I realized that alcohol and marijuana would help me manage my anxiety. I also discovered recreational drugs and started using them to make me feel part of the in crowd and to manage my depression. The early 80s were a wild time here in Houston, and as the economy was booming, so was the nightlife. And I was right in the middle of it. Drugs were very easily available, and as I said, I was right in the middle of it. At that point, I began seeking therapy to address my mental illness and drug usage. Moving into my 30s, I started to see psychiatrists who tried to regulate my anxiety and depression with prescription drugs, specifically different types of antidepressants, always combined with some kind of benzodiazepine. The one that seemed to work best in my case was Klonopin. I would always take them as directed, but was still a regular user of marijuana. These prescribed medications were not effective while getting high daily. I also kept the Klonopin close to me in case I started to feel anxious, as I was directed by my doctors. Seeing many different therapists and doctors over the next 15 years, I continued to self-medicate. I was still struggling with my depression and anxiety. I never really opened up in therapy and always sought the solution in a pill. I continued to experiment with the help of psychiatrists to find the right combination of medications. Some work better than others, but none of them never really work long terms, not to mention the awful side effects. At age 50, I was diagnosed with AML leukemia. While being treated at Houston Methodist, I got caught smoking marijuana in my hospital room. And a little footnote, in AA they talk about insanity. Well, there's nothing more insane than smoking marijuana while you're taking chemotherapy in the hospital. I'm still famous on that floor at Houston Methodist. Just go up there. The medical team suggested that I quit, and my response that it was a 30-year-old habit and it just wasn't going to be that easy. I had two choices, which were either rehab or Alcoholics Anonymous. My late brother Daryl took me to my first AA meeting at the Post Oak Club. It was around that time, while recovering from a bone marrow transplant, that my dad died of natural causes and my brother Daryl from a drug-induced heart attack at age 50. To make matters worse, my marriage ended, and after 61 years, the business that I had spent most of my life at had closed. It was then I realized the benefits of the fellowship of AA, as I could barely get out of my bed due to my depression, and I was also dependent upon Klonopin. Over the next 10 years, I was in and out of the AA program, never staying sober more than a couple years, even sometimes just a few months. I continued to use marijuana, some alcohol, and prescription Klonopin, never completing the 12 steps of AA or staying in the middle of the fellowship. As time went on, my new business started to struggle. My anxiety and depression worsened. I saw less customers and I felt isolated, as I am a people person who gets energized by being around others. Finally, my anxiety and depression were so bad, I was making frequent trips to the ER as I felt as though I was coming out of my skin and losing my mind. After going to many different emergency rooms for Ativan injections, one of the doctors looked me in the eye and said, "Mr. Wiesenthal, you are a junkie." Wow. I'll never forget the way I felt that day. It's like somebody put a knife in my stomach and twisted it. And I thought junkies lived on the streets and had needles in their arms. How could I be a junkie? And that was the bottom of my addiction when I heard those words. Never forget that day. After several stays in the psych ward at Methodist Hospital, a month in rehab, and a week in a patient facility, I sought the help of a new psychiatrist and therapist. At that point, I had become dependent upon Valium to deal with my anxiety and was not going to therapy to seek the root of my problems. What was different about this doctor was she wanted to help me get off the Valium, as opposed to the other doctors treated me with more drugs. It took me 14 months, along with therapy twice a week, to completely get off those pills. Today, I'm on a very light dosage of an antidepressant and also see a therapist on a weekly basis. I regularly attend AA meetings, have a sponsor that helped me work the steps, and try to stay close to the fellowship of AA. It only took me 11 years in the AA program to admit I was powerless over alcohol and drugs and that my life was unmanageable. That's step one. I want to thank my friends and family who were there for me when I was at the lowest point of my life, especially my two children, Alexandra and Jared, my ex-wife, Shelley, my late mother, Eleanor, and most important, my girlfriend, Carol. I know I put you all through a lot, and I will never forget how you all supported me. I believe in giving back and work as a volunteer with CanCare. Helping other people allows me to get out of my own head, which is dangerous for people like me. I still reach out to the clergy here at Congregation Beth Yeshurun when I need to, and they were always there for me when I was going through my stays at the hospital. I remember getting visits by all the clergy here, and I'll never forget that. Exercise and a good diet still remain to be part of my recovery. Carol and I just became proud parents as we got a new puppy, and you could not but help to feel better when she is in your lap or licking your face. I have to remind myself every day I'm not cured from anxiety, depression, or addiction. I have a daily reprieve based on my spiritual connection. God has done for me what I could not do for myself. In closing, the reason I'm talking about this is that I feel it is time we accept mental illness as we do other diseases. Isolation and silence are not the answer. It is time that people get comfortable asking for help. Reaching out is nothing to be ashamed of and can save a life. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Shabbat shalom.
A huge thank you and a yashar koach to Michael Wiesenthal for sharing his deeply personal journey. I know how much Rabbi Strauss wanted to be here tonight. If it was not his daughter's graduation from Emory just about an hour ago, he would be here because he knows the way all of your clergy do, and I think the way all of you know too, that a journey through mental health is not something that one can do by themselves. And it takes so much courage to stand up here and to share the way Michael did tonight. And I know I speak on behalf of your loved ones, your clergy, and everyone here that we are so proud of you. And you saved a life tonight, Michael. I hope you know that you saved a life tonight. So thank you. it is my pleasure to turn the pulpit and the bima over to our not quite cantor, Neil Tybel. He doesn't like when I call him a cantor, so almost cantor, 2 years out cantor, Neil Tybel, who has some special folks joining him tonight from Hazamir, the International Jewish High School Choir. We're very excited, so I'm going to leave it to Neil to talk a little bit about who's coming with him and what he's going to sing.
So tonight I'm going to invite Ellie Irwin, soprano for Hazamir Houston, and the conductor of Hazamir Houston, Sophie Lee Landau, to sing a song with me from Dear Evan Hansen called You Will Be Found. In this musical, Evan Hansen is he's a high school senior, and he struggles with mental health just as much as anyone does. And he feels the whole plot of the show centers around him feeling alone and feeling helpless and feeling left out of life, wondering what it would be like if he just disappeared. And the point of this show is that nobody is alone, and this song, I believe, exemplifies that very much. Have you ever felt like nobody was there? Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? Have you ever felt like you could disappear? Like you could fall and no one would hear? Well, let that lonely feeling wash away. Maybe there's a reason to believe you'll be okay. 'Cause when you don't feel strong enough to stand, you can reach out your hand. And oh, someone will come running, and I know they'll take you home. Even when the dark comes crashing through, and when you need a friend to carry you, and when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. So let the sun come streaming in, 'cause you'll reach up and you'll rise again. Lift your head and look around. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found.
There's a place where we don't have to feel alone. And every time that you call out, you're a little less alone.
If you only say the word, from across the silence, your voice is heard. Oh, 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 someone will come running. Someone will come running. sun comes streaming in, 'cause you'll reach up and you'll rise again. Lift your head and look around. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found. Out of the shadows, the morning is breaking, and all is new. All is new. It's filling up the empty, and suddenly I see that all is new. All is new. You are not alone. 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 You are not. You are not alone.
Even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need someone to carry you, when you're broken on the ground,
You will be found. 'Cause you'll reach up and you'll rise again if you only look around.
you will be found.
Even when the dark comes crashing through,
You will be found.
when you need someone to carry you, you will be found. You will be found. You will be found.